Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast, your go-to podcast for all things cybersecurity. Today I'm here with Randy and Andre. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing good. It's super early in the morning.
It is.
It's even earlier in Texas. The sun's barely even up.
Yep. We're starting early today on Tuesday. Normally we come to you at lunchtime, but today we're coming to you just after breakfast at the start of work day. Yeah. Well, Randy, it's still breakfast time, I think.
Yeah, it's almost 8 o'clock.
All right, guys. Today we're getting into some pretty interesting topics in the cybersecurity landscape. We're going to be discussing a surge in ransomware attacks in 2025, as noted by a report released by Travelers Insurance Agency. Dive into that a little bit. We're going to talk about, dive in a little bit more about this talk on the impact of generative AI on data security and the latest trends in cybersecurity, including zero trust architecture and the evolution of ransomware as a service. So if you're interested in staying ahead on threats and learning how to protect your organization, tune in and join the conversation. We cover a wide range of topics, from recent ransomware attacks to emerging technology like quantum computing and AI-driven malware. So to help us grow and reach more people, please like and share our content on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can also find our audio episodes on all major podcasting platforms. And since we're ad-free, your support is crucial to helping us continue to bring you high-quality content. So follow us on any of those platforms and check out our updates and our latest episodes and cybersecurity insights. Andre, how many episodes do we have at this point? I mean, they're all out there. So you can go back and watch episode 1 if you want, which was what, like 4 years ago?
Yeah. So, I think December was our anniversary.
Do we have 200 episodes yet?
I'm checking right now.
We would almost have to. I mean, because how many times have we missed? We've only missed like a week or two here or there, like where we've pushed it back. So it's probably 200.
Yeah, over 200 videos. Yeah, because just on videos alone, we're at 200, and then there's live, which then has another set in there. So, yeah,
well, there you go. Let's do another one.
A different podcast on AI?
No. Yeah. No, let's make another show today.
Oh yeah. All right, guys, let's get into it. Let's get into all the things we got planned for today, which are a ton of things, obviously, because we always have trouble getting through everything that we have planned in an hour show. First up on the docket is this Texas border city cyber attack. And it's a Texas border city declared a state of emergency following a cyber attack on government systems, highlighting the impact of such attacks on municipalities, critical infrastructure. So what do we have going on here, Randy? This is in your neck of the woods. Did you say this was in Mission?
Yeah, it's down on the border with Mexico, and it looks like a lot of the city is shut down, and their systems are under attack. Not a good situation.
Yeah, and what we're seeing in this case is that not only is the city, under emergency, but they're filing with the state of Texas, which is really telling because they're basically saying that they really need help. Hey, we need the state to come and help us. We need funds. We need to be able to do bids without having to go through the whole procedure, three companies and things like that. And also what we are also seeing is that, the data is encrypted. So not only the local data, which kind of now makes the entire computer systems unable to function properly, we're also seeing that it hit their backup.
Yeah. And It hit their main server, and literally every person's locked out of everything basically at this point. It's not like just like the police department or just like the mayor's office or whatever. It's the entire city, and everybody's locked out of everything. So they're at a complete standstill, basically.
Yep. So according to what I have here, the cyber attack was detected on the 28th of February, targeting the entire city of Mission's computer network. The attack forced the city, as Randy mentioned, to take things offline. It's impacted the police department as they can no longer access state databases to run things like license plates and driver's license. Essential emergency services remain operational, so I guess ambulances, things like that. But again, this is one of those situations where it puts sensitive data at risk for personal information, protected health records, civil and criminal records, all the things that we see when either courts or municipalities get hacked by these guys, right? This is the stuff that spills over onto the dark web. This is the stuff that they use in ransomware negotiations and threaten to release it if you don't pay them what they want in the time frame that they want it. So that's pretty much everything that's going on to this point. The mayor, Nori Gonzalez, she declared a local state disaster on March 4th, mentioning getting help from the state. As they also requested Mayor Greg Abbott to declare a state level emergency, which would provide financial aid and other assistance to the municipality. They're working with third-party cybersecurity experts. They've notified the FBI, and they are now implementing heightened security protocols and system monitoring to counter the cyber threat. So we'll see how this plays out.
They weren't prepared, and it was complete and overwhelming. This is a almost just about a worst case scenario. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty wild what we're seeing out there. It's crazy that these municipalities keep getting hit like this, and schools. If you look across the board between schools and municipalities, you probably have a minimum of two, and sometimes multiple, like 5 or 6 going on per week, like new organizations being hit, right? And at the end of the day, there's no like magical pot of gold that these entities can go to get money. Like they want state assistance, they want federal assistance. Well, where does that all come from, right?
Taxpayer.
It all comes from the same place, right? So to speak. So in other words, I'm not trying to pick on the mayor of Mission, right? But it doesn't matter where you get it from. You get it from the state, you get it from your own taxpayers in Mission, or you get it from the federal government. It's all tax money that you're using to get yourself out of this mess. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, it's no different than a business. We talked about this on the show literally last week. Business doesn't have money for cybersecurity. Business gets ransomware. Business comes up with money to get rid of ransomware, pay the ransom, whatever it is, or they go out of business. And it's the same thing here. We have, governments that don't have any money for anything, or school districts that don't have any money, but when they get attacked, they're going to come up with the money somehow. And it would be much better if we could come up with the money on the front end and avoid these situations in the most part. Obviously, you can't be 100% secure because you don't know what the next 0 day is. But you can be a lot more secure than this when every single system gets overtaken, just like that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we got to really start to look at this and address this, because it's going to start costing taxpayers a lot of money. Like eventually, like again, you made a good point here. I am watching the private chat, believe it or not, for once, and I see you got the Doge thing in there, right? And you're joking, but that's what's at risk here. Like, you're literally like hoping that the federal government will step in here and give you some cash so you can wiggle your way out of this. And like, I don't know, the climate right now seems like you're going to get a big fat no. So, hopefully you're really good friends with Greg Abbott and he's going to hook you up because, unfortunately they're going to be down for a while and they're going to need help to get back up. Right. We've seen cities down for months. Right.
Yep.
And the impact that has on real estate transactions alone. Right. And then it starts to impact businesses, right? Because if real estate investors can't flip properties and they're not going to hire contractors to do the work, right? Because they can't move the inventory. If they can't move the inventory, they're not going to spend the money. So this impacts a lot of different things that people just don't realize. And you don't hear about it a lot unless like real estate investors who it literally shuts down their business when things like this happen. So moving right along, guys, really interesting report by Travelers. After, I like bringing these things up because at the end of 2024, if you remember on the show, we covered, the insurance industry kind of like singing like, oh, we didn't pay as much in ransomware, but we were all quick to say like, wait a minute here. Like, it's mainly because the ransomware guys are moving quicker away from people who are being a pain in the ass. And they're just hitting people that once they hit them and they realize, hey, they're willing to negotiate. They seem like they're going to pay. That's who they spend their time with. They don't spend their time with people who are sitting there going, we'll never pay you. We're not going to pay. Like they're moving on. Right. And then they're just publishing their stuff on the dark web. It's a different time than it was maybe 2-3 years ago, where they would sit there and try everything under the sun to try to get you to pay. Now they realize it's a waste of their time and they just move on and find more vulnerable people who have the mindset of, potentially paying. Because there are a lot of people out there just on ego will not pay. Right. So here's what Travelers says, guys, in their report. In the fourth quarter, in the same time frame where this stuff was in the news and being like, oh, we're not paying as much in ransom. Fourth quarter of 2024 saw the highest level of ransomware activity recorded in a single quarter in history, with 1,663 known victims posted on leak site, to 32% increase from the prior quarter. For the full year, the number of ransomware attack victims reached 5,243, which is a 15% increase from 2023. That's what we know about. Right. Again, we talk about the ones we know about and the ones we don't know about. Most businesses right now have the luxury of not really having to report this stuff. In my opinion, only about 5% of businesses out there have a regulation where you have to report. So 95% of the businesses out there don't have to tell anybody that they got hit with ransomware if they don't want to.
Yeah, and I'm going to extend on that a little. And then out of that 95%, you have, like, as you mentioned, the people that aren't going to pay regardless. So if you're not going to pay regardless, why even put a claim in through your insurance? So these are the people that are like kind of desperate in the sense of like, man, we need, the attorney help. We need the litigation help. We need the forensics help. And let's go to our insurance.
Yep. So, Randy, 55 new ransomware groups emerged in 2024, marking a 67% increase in formation from its previous years. I mean, look, this is an insurance company putting out this report, right? This has got to be like making them go, what are we doing here? Like trying to cover people with this stuff.
It proves that it's a lucrative business still, quote unquote, if you can call crime a business, because you're seeing your startups, which is basically what this is, 33 new ransomware groups in 2023 and 55 in 2024. So what is it about? It's following the money. The money's still there. And according to this report, they're still doing a lot of the same old tactics. We talked about that a little bit in the green room about Some of these tactics are a little more ingenious than others, but the overwhelming majority, they're just going through and finding places where they can like log in with a password and then start doing things, or they can, because there's not multi-factors not set up or whatever. So interesting stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you said the money's still there, right? Well, you know what? When you said that, what came into my mind was the money's not there. Like we're in a weird time right now, right? We face a lot of economic uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainty, and this all plays into cyber criminals, right? And the increase of cyber criminal activity, meaning like there's a lot of people around the world who are going to school or learning how to program, how to do things in IT, right? And when they come out and maybe they're expecting at first, I'm going to go get a job somewhere and work for a tech company, and that doesn't pan out, and you have the opportunity to join a ransomware group. Maybe you live in Eastern Europe, right? And you have an opportunity to join one of these groups. Or your buddies get together and decide like, hey, look at this, let's figure this out, and let's get on this bandwagon and try to hack companies. This is why you see a 67% increase in group formation over 2024. I mean, there's just more there. This is like people saying like, I'd rather start a criminal hacking group than start a cybersecurity company, a legit cybersecurity company that protects businesses. I would venture to say that there wasn't a 67% increase in cybersecurity companies entering the market in 2025 or 2024.
Right. It's probably the other way around.
Correct. And I just think that like in situations like this that we're potentially going into a down market when it comes to the job market, this number is only going to increase again this year, which is scary.
And that's a pretty good point you make. I mean, because of economic uncertainty, there's less money on the good guys' side to put into it. But that also then means conversely more opportunity for the bad guys, which draws them in. And I already mentioned this in this show. We talked about it last week. If you're, if you could be totally broke, if one of your children needs a surgery, you're going to figure out a way to come up with the money to get that surgery done. So, post ransomware attack, businesses are coming up with the money to pay the ransom or to get their systems, set back up and usable again, whatever that's going to take. So, yes, the hard times mean less money on the good side, but it also still means more activity on the bad side. Another thing that popped up out of this article for me was the reliance on VPNs and hacking basically VPN credentials, which, we know that's a thing. Some of the big attacks, like the pipeline attack a year and a half ago, or 2.5 years ago, the big Colonial Pipeline attack came from VPN, somebody getting old credentials to that. But anyway, that's pretty crazy. Like I said, yes, there are some ingenious hackers out there, but they're using a lot of old ways of getting in at the same time.
They certainly are. And it's simple cybersecurity hygiene, right? That's fundamentally being missed almost across the board, right? As the report, points out, there's an increased focus on targeting IT services and consulting firms because the hackers are seeing that they serve as intermediaries for other companies and industries, right? So if you can hit kind of like the core of who's supporting maybe a particular industry, right? We talk about in our businesses niching down, right? When you niche down, you tend to work with the same type of clients, right? So if you're an IT company that works for, I don't know, healthcare companies, there's probably a good shot that you're supporting a pretty sizable healthcare facility somewhere or multiple, right? And it's a smart play to do that. But besides IT services, the report points out that The construction sector has shown up as a major sector that's being a primary target, along with hospitals and healthcare organizations, and government administration faced persistent threats, which is, all levels of government is included in that. But interesting to see the construction sector show up there, guys.
It is, but there's just so much data that the bad guys can steal from construction. And on top of that, construction has a ton of money going back and forth all the time, so if you're a big $10 million construction company, I mean, just do the math. You're doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a week coming back and forth and all these little invoices and stuff. If the bad guys can insert themselves in there and, throw in some extra invoices and get some money siphoned off that way, they will. So it's pretty lucrative for the bad guys to get into construction, into that vertical, if you will.
An analogy I would give is if there's a string of robberies happening in a neighborhood and the police came to speak to the residents that are pissed off that, the bad guys are coming in, the police would be saying, just lock your doors, close your windows. Like that's what we're saying in the IT world, in a sense. It's like, just do the basics, keep it simple. If you're just doing not just doing the basics, but at least if you're doing the basics, your chances of not getting hacked is going to decrease so much.
Right, because failure to people, what's considered a sophisticated cyber attack is what we're going to talk about later in the show, right? The companies are failing to do the basics, but the cyber criminals are they're thinking out of the box. They're using critical thinking skills to figure out where could I find something on the network that might not be protected so well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to share an example of that in a few minutes, but that's what's going on here, right? That you might have your servers locked down, your firewalls locked down, but maybe there's something hanging out in your network, like a TV or a camera or a lock, interface for a door, where they can exploit that and then cause a really bad day for you. And we're going to explain how that can happen later on in the show, so stay tuned. Nation state support is also highlighted in the report, guys. That they're seeing, a lot of nation states actively supporting these groups, probably also a contributing factor to the 67% increase. I went off on a rant about this a few weeks ago on the show about, businesses literally having to deal with defending against not only private criminals, but, well-organized government, military type operations.
Yeah, that happened yesterday.
And the report wraps up with travelers emphasizing the importance of implementing proven cybersecurity controls and offering customized cybersecurity readiness approaches to help businesses mitigate these risks. So, any other thoughts on this before we move on?
Yeah, just some nerdy thoughts. I'll probably keep them myself.
Nerdy thoughts. Nice. All right, let me grab the other article here real quick.
While you're doing that, I'm just wondering why they're not recommending some sort of process control, zero trust, only running processes on your machines that you're aware of. I rarely see these in these recommendations. I know that we see them coming out of CISA, but rarely see them in these recommendations. So that was my nerdy thought.
Well, hopefully in their next round of updating their cyber applications, they're not only asking these questions, but somehow doing some type of verification. Do they how come they don't do that? And I'm sorry if we talked about this before, because it sounds maybe I've said it before, but just if you get a house, the inspector, before the insurance gives the final stamp, they send an inspector to make sure the roof is truly only 10 years old and there's no major issues, electrical issues.
Yep. I would say that's probably coming as they figure out, because this is going to put a squeeze on their profits, and they're going to have to stay profitable to stay a business. So I would bet that that's coming.
All right. The IT guy with a clipboard is going to be coming to your door soon, taking checking your Active Directory settings.
Yeah, or they just send you a link like to a scan of some kind, and then just see how far they can get around in your system. So surprised they're not doing that now. So you probably there's probably some insurance guy watching this is like, man, why hadn't we thought of that yet?
Right.
So,
All right, guys, so move right along. We got this Akira ransomware group has, like I mentioned and hinted to in the last segment, this novel attack vector where they used an unsecured webcam to bypass EDR or your antivirus software, endpoint detection and response tools, CrowdStrike, a la things like that, marking a novel approach in evading cybersecurity measures. And this is what they do, right? They think about ways that they can avoid their tools. And like, hey, we know you're going to have a tool on your Windows computer. Maybe we can get around that somehow, some way.
Mm-hmm.
So the webcam was exploited due to its vulnerabilities, which are very common in these types of things. The vulnerabilities included remote shell access, meaning they can take complete control of the device, and unauthorized video feed viewing. And it ran a lightweight Linux operating system, which was compatible with Akira's Linux-based ransomware. Yep. So that's another interesting little tidbit.
Yep.
Is, yes, a lot of ransomware groups develop their software for Windows systems, and there's only a few groups out there that can actually encrypt a Linux-based system. Akira is one of them, and they've developed that technology to do things like this. Initially, the EDR tool detected and quarantined the ransomware binary on the Windows system. However, Akira was just, relentless. They pivoted. They used the webcam to deploy the ransomware, effectively circumventing the EDR protection. After initial attempts were blocked, Akira conducted a network scan to identify vulnerable IoT devices. They used the webcam to mount Windows network shares. So they found open Windows network shares around the network. They used the webcam to mount that to their Linux, and then they used those webcams' Linux operating system to encrypt files across the network without detection. The attack could have been prevented if the webcam had been properly secured and updated, and that highlights the importance of monitoring and patching all network devices, including IoT equipment. It would also could have been prevented if they secured those network shares properly as well, guys, and didn't let everybody have full access to everything. But we know that exists in like 98% of businesses, right? So let's be real. But yeah, that's why you're supposed to literally, when you share files out and folders out, you're supposed to know who has access to those folders and remove access to anybody who shouldn't have. It's a need to know type of thing. They don't need to be working on those files. They don't need to have access to it. But companies, because they don't want to deal with it, they don't want to take the time to do those things. They just give everybody access to everything, and then things like this become possible.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to get clarification because this is a question I really don't know the answer to. So if we're specifically talking about webcams, are we talking about like the Logitech that's mounted, or are these some type of corporate webcams that have an IP address?
Security camera.
It's an IoT device, so the device itself was connected to the network independently, right? Mm-hmm. So this could be like a camera that was sitting in a conference room, like on top of a TV.
Yeah. Okay.
It could be a Ring camera. It could be a competitor to Ring camera, right? It could be something like that where it's just you bought it off Amazon. It was a good price. You plugged it into your network. You mounted it to the ceiling or the wall and left it there, right? And you connected it to the software.
Yeah, the key is that it can run independently.
Yeah.
Whereas the webcam on my laptop here doesn't have its own operating system. Right. It's just a webcam. It gets power, turns on, and so that's
most smart devices. If people don't know,
Yep.
They boot up an operating system, more than likely Linux.
Yeah, usually Linux.
Like your light switches, those little plugs that you plug in the wall and connect to your Wi-Fi. All of those things have this exact operating system that we're talking about right here that can be exploited. So, like, yes, you need to take time out of your life and update all your smart little gadgets you have in your house every once in a while. Otherwise, you could get hacked. And we see all the time companies' laptops get hacked in people's homes because of these things.
Yeah, now it makes sense, because even like if you can control your lights through your app, therefore there's some type of IP address, there's some type of network connectivity, and normally you don't replace those things until they stop working, right? So that can literally sit in your house or office for years with no updates, no end of life policy, nothing. Yeah.
And you briefly touched on a point kind of in passing, Brian, about, you know, shared files being available to everyone. And, you know, we can see, the three of us can see, just looking at this, the cybersecurity that this company had in place or didn't have in place, you know, before all of this happened. And, you know, the fact that they were able just to go in, they basically turned the camera into their little computer. They could do whatever they want with, which it wasn't controlled by the, you know, the EDR software didn't stop it. And then use that little camera to then go and find like whole folders, like entire drives that were just being shared with the whole network, and then just boom, go in and encrypt those. Pretty ingenious. And you're right, that does happen a lot. You know, there's still a lot of people on QuickBooks Enterprise, which is a desktop product. And those are shared usually from, there's a server because it's the enterprise version. Usually there's more than one person in that. That requires, for QuickBooks to work, there has to be full everyone access to those folders. In fact, when you run the little repair tool, it pops up a little message that says, we're going to share this folder with everybody. So even if they had everything else, you know, locked down, their QuickBooks folder sitting there wide open, you know, for something like this, like their camera to do an attack on them. Anyway, sorry. Good stuff.
You're all good, brother. All good. Appreciate the insight there. Totally preventable incident. If the again, if you take these considerations, it literally goes back to what we just talked about in the Travelers report, where it's basically like layered security, right? You know, these layered security measures, you know, help you even when things like this evolving nature of cyber threats and these really persistent and you know, these guys, when they get in, it's almost like a game to them. Like they just want to break it. And once they figure out how to break it, that's the rush. I mean, the money's nice, but literally these guys feed off of breaking these systems and proving that they can do it. It's an ego-driven situation in a lot of cases. So,
hey, before we move on, we had a comment and from Mike Pena, and it's a really good point. Is that
I'm not ready to talk about that yet.
Okay, we'll hold off on it. Okay,
it's not really a question. It's, you know,
it's more of a comment. So yeah, okay. When you're ready, I'm ready to make a comment about that.
All right, we got to end in a few minutes, right, Andre?
No, I'm good. This is actually a fun show today. Not that all shows aren't fun, but it's been fun.
I have to disable my ad blocker here. All right. So the FBI is alerting people after we get this ad out of the way from somebody. FBI is alerting an interesting new tactic, as we talked about evolving tactics. $25,000 snail mail ransomware threat used to U.S. CEOs is confirmed. And there's multiple stories, multiple reports out there. about this shifting tactic in getting people to pay these ransoms. So what's happening here, guys?
I don't know how someone can fall, and $250,000. I don't know how someone can fall for this. Like you're the CEO of your company, you get a FedEx, and the ransomware group says, "Hey, we have all your information. We're trying to keep it confidential. Go ahead and pay us. Use this QR code. Pay us in Bitcoin." I just don't know how someone can fall for this. Like, I need the proof. Personally, I need the proof.
Yeah, we don't know if it's working yet or not. Is it working? Is this just another tactic that they're trying? This has been in offline, real time, out in the real world, kidnappings. This has been a thing that's been around. So this isn't something new that they've thought of, but if it's working or not, that's something that we don't know yet. Has anybody actually paid? And if no one pays, then probably what you'll see next is they'll send a sample of some kind of data, and to get people to pay and see if that.
It's a great return on investment. If you're paying 70 cents for a stamp and you're just sending it all to the CEOs, it pretty much. But then again, look at all of the spam text messages that we're all getting now, as far as tolls and things like that. And sometimes we think about it too, like, why would someone fall for that? Like, I'm not going to pay this. So, maybe our thinking is much different from the average consumer.
Possibly, but letters assert corporate networks have been compromised. It's reported that it's coming from the BianLian ransomware group, but the letters are believed to be from impostors posing as the BianLian group with no evidence of actual data breaches or involvement from the BianLian group. Now, here we go, right? We've talked about this on the show, I think last week even, where these companies, don't believe that they've been breached. And this is happening more and more where these groups are coming out. They're not deploying ransomware. We've already covered that on the show a million times, where we said, kind of encrypt. They figured out that they don't really need to encrypt, right? They could just take. So these businesses are running around looking for a computer with a big red flashing, you've been encrypted, and that's not what's going on. Their information has just been stolen, and they're on this dark web leak site, and they have a timer that says, if you don't, negotiate with us by a certain time frame, we're going to start releasing this information. And then it's like they release a little bit, and that might get the company's attention. And then other companies just look at that and go, "Oh, so what?" You know what I mean? But this is the tactics that they use, and this is right in line with that. Like, this is what you hear these companies say, like, "Oh, we're not aware of any data breach." Well, you can't chalk this up to an imposter, right? They might have something. Like you might be in a world of hurt one day when the stuff ends up on the dark web, all of it, and then you end up paying millions of dollars in legal fees to defend class action lawsuits that come your way when people's information who spilled over to the dark web decide to sue you. So these physical layers are creating this different layer of intimidation. They imply personal targeting, and they can basically bypass all your security filters. And they are saying that a lot of times they're seeing that these are psychologically more impactful than doing it digitally. I guess that's interesting because a lot of times with these events, right, you're not dealing with the CEO directly. You're dealing with like incident responders and a team of people, right? Now, when you send this letter and if it gets to the CEO and not his secretary or somebody else, you potentially have, a direct line into their psyche where you might not have that in a normal situation when you have all these other buffers like lawyers and other people that might be, maybe sanitizing the information before it gets to you so it doesn't seem as bad. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and you're playing on their emotions. It's kind of like how I don't know if they still do it, but remember back in the days, they would send an email saying, "We have pictures of you," looking at websites and stuff like that. And for the person who was actually guilty in the sense of like, "Oh yeah, I was watching videos last night I'm gonna pay because I know I'm guilty. So maybe the CEO is like, I've been skimming out on my cybersecurity budget, so they got me, and now I got to pay.
So the other interesting part about these letters, guys, is they usually target high-level executives, and they also send them to their personal home addresses, not to the company. Hospital health systems have been highly targeted with this, and the demands have reached as high as $500,000.
Wow.
So we'll see where this goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Be very, very interesting to learn this. So, all right, guys, we have this other interesting story here out of Virginia, is it? I think. I don't remember where this is from, Randy.
School district?
What's that?
This is the school district you're doing, right?
Yeah.
School district, yeah.
So this Renton School District, they had an incident a while back, but we wanted to kind of talk about it because it just hit the news lately. And this school had a cyber attack. What, in 2023 it was, I think, guys. And they didn't start notifying affected individuals, and I think it's about 33,000 of those individuals, or 30,000. They didn't start notifying them until well after the event in 2024, and they didn't actually start publicly reporting it until basically this year. So it's been about 18 months since the August 2023 Akira ransomware gang. There they are again. The attackers listed the district on their leak site. They threatened to release 200 gigs of data, including sensitive medical information. And they did that, and that breach exposed the personal information of 30,373 individuals with social security numbers, banking information, dates of birth, health insurance details, and medical records. They reported this network disruption in August 3rd of 2023, but they didn't notify anybody until 6 months later, end of February 2024. And the district's investigation concluded in September of 2023. Despite efforts to notify affected parties, school officials have not publicly commented on the incident. So now somebody uncovered this and basically was like, hey, like this happened, and it kind of got swept under the rug.
Yep.
Any thoughts on this, guys?
If I'm a parent, like think of the psyche. If I'm a parent and now someone is telling me that this happened 2 years ago, it's so much different than like if it happened yesterday for me to go in front of the school district and be like, what are you guys doing? Like, so it's like past news now, like as if it doesn't hurt as much. All intentional is what I'm saying, like sweep it under the rug, because the longer this incident has happened, the less, fire torches people are going to be knocking on our door, mad and complaining.
It's interesting how this is making the news now, Brian. And I looked on a interest around articles, huge interest around this article and this release over the past several days, or the last couple of days since it came out.
Yep.
But anyway, it's just interesting how much interest this has generated, for something that happened a couple of years ago, almost a year and a half ago, I guess.
Well, it's a big deal, and I think it's an even bigger deal when you wait this long to tell people.
Right.
So and it's just interesting.
Less evidence too, right?
Yep. Well, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
No, but if you do a deposition for the IT director at the time or whatever, people start getting and.
True. It's harder to conduct that, right? So
yeah.
All right, moving right along. Another school attack that we're going to talk about. Just an update here, guys. If you remember, we covered this one a few weeks ago, where this Bronx elite private school exposed students' personal information. So update on that is Riverdale in February 25, Riverdale School is known as a prestigious private school in the Bronx was targeted by Ransom Hub, which stole 42 gigs of sensitive data of students and faculty. They posted a countdown clock on its dark net site demanding a ransom from the school. After the deadline passed, the group published the stolen data on the dark web, making it accessible to malicious actors. Riverdale School has chosen not to pay the ransom and is working closely with law enforcement to address the incidents, and families affected by the breach have been notified. A little bit quicker than the last story, right? March 2025, the leaked data had been viewed over 4,000 times. By March 9th, this number had increased over 5,000. Experts warn that paying the ransom can perpetuate cybercrime and does not guarantee data deletion. And this incident highlights the vulnerability of private educational institutions to cyber threats, especially those not covered by comprehensive data protection laws like FERPA. So, guys, this attack on this school, it's Riverdale Country School, is part of a broader trend of increasing cyber attacks targeting all educational institutions from, K through 12 all the way through college. We saw that Power School breach, that affected schools nationwide. What makes this such a big target for them other than, money?
Information.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And the fact if they have the information of children, they can open accounts and things like that. And nobody's really out there. Well, a few people, but most people aren't out there monitoring their 5-year-old's credit report. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I think the way I look at that, Randy, is the people, it was a rarity for somebody to go out and monitor your child's credit. I know when I was a kid, it was almost unheard of. Started to hear some people give that advice along the way, but I think it's almost going to become one of those things where you have to do it or you're going to end up in trouble.
Yeah.
All right, let me grab this next one. So we got this RIPTA ransomware attack, guys, on this out of the HIPAA journals. I'm going to pull that up here in a second. Do you guys know anything about this? Rhode Island Public Transit. I don't have much on here, so let me read it real quick. Did you guys read this one?
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to mention was just look that it happened in 2021 and 4 years later. So just imagine the amount of legal fees that has been dragged on for the last 4 years. So was it really worth, not having a full cyber stack and posture?
Mm.
What was the cost?
No. I don't know the costs. But what I'm just more saying is if the fact that you have a legal case that has dragged on for 4 years.
Yeah.
If you're that, if you're them, that's a lot of money,
Yep.
So they settled $350,000 to cover claims, notice costs, administration costs, and service awards, whatever that means. If claim exceeds the amount, the defendants may add up to $25,000 more. State employees can claim up to $1,000 and up to 4 hours of lost time at $15 per hour. And if you had extraordinary losses, you're capped at $7,500. And they get free credit monitoring, which is going to cost them $16.4 million apparently, the company. Yeah. So that's going to cost a lot of money. They settled it, but yeah, they did fight it for a while. It's a 2001 attack, and they just settled it. So very interesting. Very interesting. Just another illustration of you think you're, if you think you're doing things the right way, or you think like, hey, we're not going to pay the ransom and we're going to get out of this cheaper, and then the cyber criminal group releases it, on the dark web, and now you got to pay for all these other things like credit protection, right? That's going to cost them tens of millions of dollars to protect all these people's information for the next 10 years because of this event, right? And there's costs associated with all of this, besides just paying for credit monitoring, right? And Power Schools is going to learn that, right, guys? Simple cybersecurity protections that weren't in place caused thousands of districts and students in those districts and in teachers information to be exposed. And now they're saying, this story's coming out in TechCrunch, what Power Schools won't say about the data breach affecting millions of students, but I think there's enough evidence out there to kind of figure out what's going on. So thoughts here, Randy?
Yeah, I have so many, I can't stop shaking my head. Just the fact that this boiled down to lack of multi-factor. And, we on this podcast, we hear from people from time to time, hey, this is kind of a pain in the butt. Doing this cybersecurity control is a pain in the butt. Why do I have to always enter multi-factor? Why can't I store my passwords in my browser? We hear all those kind of things. And I'm wondering, did the developers, did they hear back from like their focus groups of teachers and stuff like, oh, don't make us do MFA. It's too much trouble or whatever. And the developers just listened and nobody really just made sure like, hey, does anybody have to enter in any kind of anything to get logged in here? That's it's like the simplest of things that was overlooked or willfully ignored. You know what I mean?
Lock your doors, close your windows.
Exactly.
And another thing too was, and we talked about this, but just to reiterate it, is that the breach happened. They were in their system since August, and it took them until December to realize that they had someone lurking in, and it all happened because of compromised credentials.
And apparently the bad guys have said that they deleted all the data once they got paid. So no data is going to be leaked ever. That's not. I'm being facetious. So,
well, they may not leak it, but they may sell it to someone else. I mean,
exactly.
Right? So technically, they didn't leak it.
We don't know what's going to happen to it, right? And unfortunately, they already have it. Right, they have it. A third party has it. Right now, it's up to them as to whether they actually delete it, do the right thing, take care of it, encrypt it, or whatever. Right, so nobody else can get their prying eyes on it. But we've seen this information get stolen by cyber criminals and come out in so many crazy ways over the years. I mean, at the end of the day, that data is sitting on another machine somewhere, and who knows what's going to happen to that machine in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Could get hacked, it could get disposed of improperly, and then somebody else spins it up and like, oh, look at this, a ransomware group's computer. Look at all this information I have. You know what I mean? Things like that have happened. It's not out of the question, right? So let's blow through. I think that wraps up the show for the most part, right, guys? Let's wrap through some of these comments today. We got a bunch of them. This is your Mike Pena comment, Randy. You want to address it? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I thought it was a pretty good comment because, and it made me start thinking like, us on the show, we do have a lot of knowledge. We've been studying this, on the regular. It's our lives. It's what we're experts at. Mm-hmm. But, a lot of the people in IT don't know about this stuff. A lot of the regular users. And anyway, when we say basic cybersecurity, which we said it, all three of us said it at least 2 to 5 times today, probably, when we say it, we know what that means. And your average bloke does not know what that means. And it just makes it more, it just underlines the importance of having good training, I guess is my comment on that. And how training, though a pain in the butt, potentially, just to people, it's a time consumer, it still pays off and it's still worth it. We need to have training. We need to have more training. People need to be aware of what's going on. So I thought it was a great comment.
Definitely was. Appreciate the support, Mike. Andre, Luke, appreciate your humor. Also dropped a comment here about the webcam hack is very eye-opening. He likes to go on sites like Shodan, which we've mentioned on the show before. You can watch CCTV cameras that aren't secure. He's not wrong. I mean, you can do that stuff. And then OCR, JC says OCR, optical character recognition, if you don't know what that is a new threat vector. Documents are scanned and processed, and certain text could trigger latent malicious code. Not wrong. Especially if it's being fed into AI.
Mm-hmm.
You could literally OCR the back end language that the AI is using. You could literally OCR that in, and unfortunately, right now with most of these AI platforms, it doesn't know the difference between the command language and the actual prompt that's being put in, and you can trick these AIs into doing things, jailbreaking it's called. And you can trick these AIs into doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
So basically, like, let's just say the document had a QR code. You scan the document, the QR code has some type, like if it's scanned, it goes to like a malicious link, payload, things like that.
I don't know. No, you could just literally scan in like code, right? So let's say I know a code base that your platform is built on, right? I put in code, malicious code that is compatible with your code base, right? And you scan that into your system, and then now that code base that malicious code base I created in a document I sent you that somebody scanned in is now inputted into, say, your CRM system or your document management system.
Okay.
Right. And maybe I just put a backdoor in your software by doing that.
Right.
Right. Somebody doesn't know what they're scanning in is actually malicious code. Right. So that's kind of how that's kind of how it works. It's an advanced technique. It's not easy to do. But it's not out of the question either. Especially with AI. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff with jailbreaking AI. If you look into it, pretty easy to do. And it's pretty scary, depending on the AI platform you're using, what you can do with it. So JC says he can compromise an ECM app with OCR. So there you go. Wow. So not out of the question. I mean, look, some of these things that I've seen out there are written very poorly. Yeah, I mean, look, some companies make good products from a user interface standpoint, and people adopt them and they like them. But at the back end, the code is crap. They don't update it very much, and it's not secure. But users love it because maybe it worked really well. So you end up in these situations where you got a guy like JC who can use a document you scan in to hack you. Right up there with the webcam stuff, guys. So good show. Good job. Thank you so much for your inputs. Remember, share the show out there. Do everything you can to secure yourself. If you need help with any of this, you know how to find us. Reach out to us. Appreciate all the support. We'll see everyone in the next episode. Take care, everyone.